Our anniversary began like a dream. A peaceful breakfast on our sunny balcony, the sweet scent of lavender filling the air as it flowed through the open windows. I had planned everything perfectly. A bouquet of her favorite flowers, reservations at the same restaurant where we had our first date, and a handwritten letter that had taken weeks to perfect. But beneath the surface, something was wrong. The night before, I had noticed her texting someone late into the evening, a secretive smile curling at the corners of her lips. She didn't think I could see. She had been distant for weeks. Her laughter was quieter, and her gaze avoided mine. I told myself it was just stress, or maybe even surprise at how meticulous I had been in planning everything. As we sat at breakfast, I asked, "Are you excited for tonight?" Her eyes flickered for a moment. Hesitation, guilt, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that could disarm anyone, and said, "Of course, love. I can't wait." But something about the way she held her fork, as if grounding herself, made my stomach twist. Later that evening, I arrived at the restaurant early, eager to see her reaction to everything I had planned. The private table near the window overlooked the city skyline, which sparkled like a sea of stars. A violinist was ready to play her favorite song. When she hadn't arrived by 7 p.m., I checked my watch. It was 7:15. I tried calling her, but there was no answer. By 7:30, the waiter gave me a sympathetic smile, as if I had been stood up. My palms began to sweat. Something was wrong. I left the restaurant, my heart pounding like a drum. Outside, the cold night air cut through my jacket. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text. "Sorry, running late. Don't wait up." The casual tone sent a chill down my spine. My wife had never been one to flake on plans, especially something as important as our anniversary. I tried calling again, but the line went straight to voicemail. I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my chest. So, I did something I never thought I would. I opened the tracking app we had installed on our phones years ago for emergencies. The Blued wasn't anywhere near home. It was at a hotel across town. My hands shook as I hailed a cab, the image of her perfect smile playing in my mind like a cruel joke. The ride felt like an eternity, the city lights blurring as questions raced through my head. Who was she with? Why was she there? Was I overreacting? When I arrived at the hotel, the truth hit me like a wrecking ball. I saw her right away, leaning against a man I didn't recognize. He kissed her, and she kissed him back, slow, deliberate, shameless. I pushed through the hotel doors, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Her laughter froze mid-sentence when she saw me. She didn't flinch, didn't scramble for an explanation. Instead, she turned to me, still resting her hands on his chest, and smiled. "It's over between us," she said, her voice calm, as if she were ending a business deal. In that moment, my world collapsed. But in the wreckage of my heart, something else stirred, a cold, searing fury. I stood there, rooted to the marble floor, her words echoing in my mind. "It's over between us." The man beside her had the nerve to smirk, his arm tightening around her waist, as if he had already won. His confidence was infuriating, and hers was unforgivable. "What the hell is this?" I finally managed, my voice low. But trembling with restrained rage, she tilted her head, as if I were the one who owed her an explanation. "Don't make a scene, David," she said, her voice cold. "It's done. Let's not complicate this more than it needs to be." The word complicate echoed in my mind like a cruel joke. 10 years of marriage, of building a life together, reduced to a neatly packaged dismissal in a hotel lobby. I took a step closer, my fists clenching at my sides. "Who is he?" I demanded. My gaze locked onto the stranger's smug face. "Does it matter?" she replied, crossing her arms as if I were wasting her time. "This is what I want. I've been unhappy for years, and you didn't notice. So, I found someone who did." Her words hit like a dagger, twisting deep. I should have felt pain, but all I felt was numbness, like my body had shut down to contain the tidal wave of emotions threatening to break free. "I noticed," I said, my voice like gravel. "I just didn't realize you were capable of this." The man, tall and polished, finally spoke up. "Listen, man, she's made her choice. You should respect that and move on." Something snapped inside me. I lunged forward, grabbing him by the collar before I could think twice. "Move on," I growled. "You think you can just walk into my life and take everything I built?" He stumbled back, his cocky demeanor faltering for the first time. But before I could do anything else, she stepped between us, her hand on my chest. "Stop," she hissed, her eyes narrowing. "You're embarrassing yourself." The hotel manager appeared, his nervous voice cutting through the tension. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I let go, my chest heaving as I glared at both of them. "This isn't over," I said, my voice cold and steady as I walked away. Their laughter followed me, like a haunting melody. Back at home, the silence was deafening. Every photo, every piece of furniture, every scent reminded me of her. I stared at the anniversary gift I had left on the table, a gold bracelet engraved with the words "Forever and Always." The absurdity of it made me laugh, a bitter, dark sound that echoed in the emptiness. But as the hours passed, the despair gave way to something sharper. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. If she thought she could humiliate me and walk away unscathed, she was gravely mistaken. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was war. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the remnants of our life scattered across the counter. Her untouched coffee mug, the stack of unpaid bills she always insisted on handling, and a grocery list written in her handwriting. But none of it mattered now. She had made her choice, and so would I. By midday, I was combing through our joint accounts, my hand steady as I reviewed every transaction. I noticed the withdrawals immediately. Small amounts at first, but they added up. Over the last 6 months, thousands of dollars had been taken, transferred to an account I didn't recognize. The betrayal deepened. It wasn't just infidelity, it was theft. I started making calls, beginning with my lawyer. By evening, the wheels were in motion. I had frozen the accounts, canceled the credit cards, and filed for an emergency injunction to prevent her from touching anything else. Then came the messages. Long, rambling texts from her, alternating between faux remorse and barely concealed arrogance. "David, let's be civil about this. There's no point in dragging this out. You knew we weren't happy. I'm sorry you're hurt, but this is better for both of us. And if you keep making things difficult, I'll have no choice but to tell everyone why our marriage really fell apart. Do you want people to know the truth?" The threat lingered in my mind. What truth? She had spun a narrative in her head, twisting our life into some justification for her betrayal. But I didn't respond. Instead, I reached out to an old friend, a private investigator. If she had skeletons in her closet, I was going to find them. 2 days later, I had answers. The man from the hotel was more than just a fling. He was her colleague, a recently promoted executive at her firm. They had been sneaking around for nearly a year, using business trips and late meetings as their cover. But it didn't stop there. She had been quietly siphoning money from our savings to help fund his failing startup. The picture was becoming clearer. This wasn't a romance. It was a calculated move to build a new life, one where I had no place. I sat in my office, the investigator's report spread out before me. Anger boiled beneath the surface, but beneath that, there was a grim sense of clarity. This wasn't just betrayal. It was premeditated destruction, and she thought she'd won. Later that evening, I found myself standing outside her office building. The lights on the 10th floor were still on. I had no plan, only the simmering rage that had carried me here. When she exited, she emerged from the building, arm in arm with him. At first, she didn't see me, but when I stepped into the streetlight, her smile faltered. "David," she said, her voice too calm, "what are you doing here?" I looked past her to him. I just came to see what a man who steals from another looks like up close. He bristled. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Don't play dumb, I said, stepping closer. You think you're the first man to try and build a life on lies? You're just another parasite, and I'll deal with you like one. She stepped between us, her eyes flashing. Enough, David. You're making a fool of yourself. No, I said, my voice steady. I'm just getting started. The confrontation was only the beginning. I had no intention of getting lost in petty arguments or emotional theatrics. My response would be calculated, precise, and devastating. Over the next few days, I set my plan into motion. The investigators' findings weren't just a weapon. They were a blueprint for dismantling her fantasy world. The first step was exposing their affair. She may have thought she had the upper hand, but I knew her carefully curated image mattered to her more than anything. I forwarded the investigators' report to her firm's HR department, attaching a note. For your review, ethical concerns regarding senior staff. Within hours, her perfect reputation began to unravel. An emergency meeting was called. She and her lover were summoned, blindsided by the evidence laid bare before their colleagues. As I watched from the sidelines, I imagined her scrambling for excuses, her carefully constructed lies crumbling under the weight of the truth. But I wasn't done. The next step was financial. I filed a legal motion to claim the funds she had siphoned from our accounts, citing evidence of fraud and misappropriation. Her lover's startup, already on shaky ground, faced a sudden audit, thanks to a well-placed tip. Investors pulled out, and by the end of the week, his company was in freefall. The final move was personal. I sent her a message, "Meet me at the house. We need to talk." She arrived an hour later, her expression a mix of fury and desperation. "What the hell are you doing, David?" she demanded the moment she stepped inside. "You're ruining everything." "No," I said calmly, leaning against the kitchen counter. "I'm reclaiming what's mine." She scoffed, pacing like a caged animal. "You think this is going to bring me back? Make me regret leaving you?" I shook my head, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "This isn't about you coming back. It's about making sure you understand what happens when you destroy someone's life." Her anger faltered, replaced by something else, fear. "David, please," she said, her voice softening. "We don't have to keep doing this. Let's just move on." I stepped closer, holding her gaze. "Move on? You didn't just betray me, Sarah. You tried to erase me, my trust, my love, my future. You took everything, and you thought I'd just let you walk away." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing, not pity, not remorse, just the cold satisfaction of watching her unravel. "You'll get what's yours," I continued, "but don't expect it to come without consequences. You'll leave this house with nothing but the clothes on your back. You'll watch your lover's empire crumble. And you'll know that every step of the way, it was me who pulled the strings." She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "Goodbye, Sarah," I said, stepping aside to let her pass. I hope it was worth it. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild. The house felt different now, quieter, lighter. The absence of her presence was a void, but one I learned to fill with purpose. I took up running, rediscovered old hobbies, and reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during our marriage. Slowly, I began to feel like myself again, stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. As for Sarah, her life unraveled in ways I could only imagine. Rumors swirled about her dismissal from the firm, and her lover disappeared, leaving her to face the fallout alone. One night, as I stood on the balcony with a glass of whiskey in hand, I thought about the man I had been, the one who would have begged her to stay, who would have sacrificed his dignity for a woman who never deserved it. That man was gone. In his place stood someone new, someone unafraid to demand respect, to fight for what he deserved. The scars of betrayal would never fully fade, but they had taught me an invaluable lesson. Sometimes the greatest revenge is reclaiming your life and living it on your own terms. And so I did.